Separation of powers is used to separate the three branches of the government into three distinctive branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. Each branch has power over another and checks and balances to keep one from becoming corrupt within the U.S. government and upheld the integrity of the Constitution. Early provisions of separation of powers have been seen to go back to 1690, where Montesquieu is credited with a lot of the philosophies that go into the separation of powers, checks and balances, and so forth. John Locke is also incorporated with giving ideas into the separations of powers at an early stage. The purpose or objective of separation of powers is to separate the branches into three distinct branches where there's a self-regulation between the three, as one cannot receive as much power as the other without going through the other branch. They're all leveled out through checks and balances, which keep them balanced, as you can see. A key factor with the separation of powers is the checks and balances within each branch. Each branch goes through a process of checks and balances within that branch. So within that branch, say the executive branch, there's checks and balances that have to go through the Senate, whether the president can go past certain laws or veto certain laws. With the checks and balances within these three branches, not only do they check each other within these branches, they are also upheld separation of powers. As I said before, with the separation of powers, checks and balances are used to regulate and keep these separation of powers to uphold the Constitution. With the executive and legislative branches, they are elected by the people. Members of the judicial branch, however, are chosen and confirmed by the Senate as appointed by the president. The legislative branch is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Both form the United States Congress. As I said before, Congress has the ability to declare what's inferior or substantially worthy of the Supreme Court justices, which is within the judicial branch. The Congress also has the ability to have a 2/3 majority vote and reject presidential vetoes or laws that he wants to pass. With constant levels of powers being offset and balanced, it does not give one branch enough power to overrule the other without self-regulation. So checks and balances preserve law and ethics within the U.S. Obviously, with the powers that are offset and balanced, self-regulation occurs, as I said before. So one does not receive more power than the other to become too powerful in making laws and declaring war and whatnot. The Congress, however, has the most power in checking and balancing on the other two branches, so the legislative branch. The checks and balances, however, do not conflict and give them too much power. Just the Congress makes up so much of the majority of the U.S. political system, it gives them a little bit more of an advantage in checking on other branches.